Mr. Roland, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Troy. How are you?
How's everything in Ankeny?
Well, it's busy right now. Traffic is crazy here and a little bit late tonight, but construction outside. But things are great. Things are great outside of that, outside of the roads.
I thought we'd start kind of new. USA Wrestling had their board of directors meeting this past weekend, the voting, and the girls decided to go kind of mirror the boys and have
Yep,
different age group directors and you happen to get one of those positions.
I
What
did.
position did you get, sir?
So I'll be the 16U girls director for Iowa USA Wrestling, which is a normally a 4-year term, but since this was a new thing, we're trying to, equal with the boys is three positions, 14U, Jake Phillips, 16U, myself, and then juniors would be Alexis Slade. And those terms will only go till they match up with the boys. So, for
Uh,
example, I was the 16U boys director elected last year for a 4-year term. So there's years left on that. So now
uh,
that I've moved over to the 16U girls, I will follow out that 3-year term, and then it'll be up for election again.
so everybody kind of gets the same exact, you're on the same voting cycle, so it
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah, yeah. So it's
get all
boys and
crazy.
girls, yeah. So trying to be a little
Gotcha.
more equitable, maybe.
Yeah, no, that's a good deal. And it's great that's all high school coaches and
Yeah.
probably a good thing. It's probably a good thing to break that all up because there's a lot to it. Man, there's a
Yeah,
lot to
there
those
is. The
things.
dual teams are right. Poor Charlotte, like putting all those dual teams together for the last few years, like that can be very challenging. So that alone, and then obviously the numbers are growing. So, maybe not quite there right now, but very shortly the goal is to, need three people at those levels. So
Yeah. Well, the more good qualified people you got to help and the better off you are. That's
absolutely.
kind of the direction we've been going also.
Yeah, it's
Um,
been yeah, go ahead, sorry.
No, no, you're fine. I was just gonna say, Ankeny, man, what a great season you had last year. You've been building that team for, well, we're going into our fourth year now,
Yeah,
right? So,
2 years
you've done
prior
a
to
great,
last year.
yeah, done a great job there. Um, how many qualifiers you have last year?
I believe we had nine.
9 qualifiers, and how
Yeah,
many place winners out of that?
7.
7. And I know in one of those we lost to you head to head again. Man,
Yeah,
I gotta figure you out sometime, but that's all right. So
pretty
what do you have
basic,
come?
pretty basic.
Yeah, what do you got coming back next year?
So we return, I mean, just from top to bottom, we return state qualifier at 100, Zoe Sullivan. Should be a sophomore this year at 105. These are the weights last year.
Yeah.
105, Lauren Watson placed third. Should be a junior for us this year. Nora Bacchus is back, who's a state runner-up at 110 last year. Trudy Hag is a place winner. I believe she got, oh my gosh, fifth or sixth
Fifth.
last year.
It
Um,
was it was fifth. We got sixth.
okay. Man, that's embarrassing. She's back as a senior. Obviously, we're saying goodbye to Elise Engebretsen, who, what a story she was for our program and will be forever in the Ankeny wrestling community, coming from a sophomore, never wrestled before, to winning state title 2 years later. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
So kudos to her. At 130, we return Audrey Hedrick, who was not a state qualifier for us last year, but she'll be a senior. She's actually one of our Bondurant girls. She'll be back. Maddie Postma, I mean, you know, I'm on the fence on talking about this, but she likely will not be with us this year due to an unfortunate injury a few weeks ago playing soccer, which is kind of her number one love.
Hmm.
That's very disappointing for us. We love Maddie. She's going to be around. She'll be with us every day. Just unfortunately won't be on the mat. So she'll be a junior. She'll come back as a senior, and we'll be excited about her then. Obviously, at 140, Hayden Bratland was the state champion for us. Girls just kind of a mat rat, wrestling everywhere. I think you saw her a couple
Yep.
days
I
ago.
just
Um,
yeah, just talked to her.
45, we have everybody's crowd favorite. Jamie Craw will be a sophomore this year. She was a seventh place finisher for us last year. At 55s, kind of up in the air. We got a couple of people. Well, we have probably a handful of girls around that weight that could vie for that position. But we're saying goodbye to Haley McGrew, two-time finalist for us. So
Yeah.
She was a special one as well. So, and then, at 170 and 190, we return Asia Mosier at 190, who was not a state qualifier, but had some really significant wins. Beat the girl from Boone last year. She'll be back. Don't know where she's going to be at 90 or 235. And then Kaylee Staples returns to us, will be a sophomore. She's a state qualifier at heavyweight last year. She may, between those two, they'll kind of fill 190, 235 potentially. And then, you know, the rest, we got some open spots. So it'll be exciting to see who steps up and, makes a difference for us this year. Obviously,
That's
the goal is to
exciting.
win a state title. So,
Yeah, yeah. Well, you guys
not
came
going to
close
sugarcoat
last year.
that.
Yeah,
So
came close last year.
we did. We were in the
Second last
mix,
year, which
obviously, but
yeah,
kudos to Raccoon River. Obviously, they're doing some really good things. So
you
just
got
right
a
behind them.
solid core coming back though. That's got to
And,
be really
yeah,
exciting. What do
absolutely.
you got? What do you have coming up? What's the freshman looking like?
So we were pretty green in our freshman group last year. We got about maybe 16 or 17 returners, and signups here in Ankeny is a little wonky. And then obviously we'll get into this.
Yeah.
It's the elephant in the room. Obviously we have a number of girls coming from a number of different schools.
Hmm.
Obviously, for those who don't know, we are not only Ankeny and Ankeny Centennial, but we were last year for the last 3 years North Polk, which
Yep.
North Polk has broken off and they're going to have their own program next year. So, or this year, excuse me. So we're excited for that. Wishing them the best. And then Bondurant Farrar will be with us again this year. Not sure what the future of that will look like, but so we have some complications in sign up. So what I have right now is kind of an email list and a document of people planning on coming back from last year's, or put this out to people coming. And right now we currently have about 17 freshmen, most of which, with the exception of a couple, were on our team last year. Most significantly, coming up, we have two girls that have been working, went to clubs and whatnot. Izzy Schaefer actually will be around 100 pounds. She was an AAU state champion at 100 last year. Um, so 100, 105, somewhere in there. And then Gwen Phillips is another freshman that kind of bought in last, or excuse me, eighth grader, kind of bought in and went clubbing, clubbing
Yep.
with
Yep.
Moen Academy last spring. So we're excited to see what those two bring. Plus, like I said, I mean, a lot of green girls last year in our middle school, with about 17 of them. And that has worked out okay so far for some of our upperclassmen that just started at that age too. So the future is exciting. We got numbers, obviously. Who knows what the future is going to look like as far as Ankeny and Ankeny Centennial go. But I would expect Bondurant to spread their wings shortly.
Yep. Yeah, well, I'm in the same situation too. I guess we still have Cherokee with us this year, so I have five schools coming to me, and which, the whole goal from the beginning is, and it's similar to your goal. Let's make sure that everybody's ready to have their own team, but we don't
Sure.
want to we don't want to kick them out till they're ready either.
Right.
Don't want to put them in a
Yeah.
don't want to put them in a situation where they're not having good practice partners, don't have coaches that care, don't have that situation. And then the other thing that comes up is coaches, we don't get to make those decisions. you
Right.
know,
Right.
that's an administrative decision. I've ran into that a few times. People asking me, I was like, I have no idea who's coming with me this year, to tell you the
Right.
truth. Yeah.
We've talked about this before, Troy, like, with Ankeny and Ankeny Centennial, obviously we're a very large suburban metro area. Um, that was a plus when looking at this potential for a job, you know what I mean?
Hmm. Oh yeah.
Um, I knew what I was getting into, right? And it's been a blast, obviously. There's more than one way to grow girls wrestling.
Yes, for sure. There definitely is. Yeah, so I mean, but numbers are coming up. You and Ankeny Centennial. I think you've talked, man. A lot of those girls would probably transfer if they had to anyway. You know, so is it really going to help that team out at this point in time, right?
Sure,
And we're
sure.
the
For the
same. I'm
future,
the
yeah.
same. I'm the same way. I got, a lot of the schools have five or six, seven girls. Well, they're on the edge of maybe being able to have a team, but can they really support a team and grow that team, too? So
Right.
that's where I'm kind of at with that too. So,
I mean,
well,
honestly, numerically, like, and I had this conversation, I've had it with numerous people. I'm not going to name names, but I've
Oh, I'm
had it
sure.
with people where it's like, CIML regarded as a lot of respect in the state conference race, right? So if
Yep.
you split, us and Raccoon River up, I mean, honestly, Ankeny most likely doesn't fill a team. Talking last year, you
Uh-huh.
know, moving forward, I mean, we're getting closer. I mean, last year, I mean, realistic, we only had 15 Ankeny girls, 15 Centennial girls, and then, we actually had Bondurant supplied a coach, and a driver. And so they drove over here in a big van, and so we had a big bump in numbers last year for them. There's like 7 or 8 of them, and then 2 or 3, 4 North Polk girls start the season. So it's not like we're
Oh
booming
yeah.
numbers that
Yep.
would dominate on their own anyway.
Yeah. No, and it takes time. Again, we're in year 4 of sanctioned girls wrestling.
Right?
There'll be a lot of changes coming.
Absolutely.
Um, you know, coaching it's ever evolving, but we both of us had really good coaches coming up. Who are some of the coaches that shaped, your foundation in coaching?
I mean, in coaching, I mean, Jason Christensen, Jeff Evans, Jessamine Smith. Just all my time at Southeast Polk back when I was a young assistant and just learning from guys like that. It was, I mean, honestly, that's where my entire foundation comes from. When you're talking about coaching, talking about being a man, talking about, growing up as a human being. I mean, you'd have to give credit to Matt Deal at Central College, Mike McGivern at Lincoln, um, plus a ton of assistant coaches. One of my coaches now is somebody I've looked up to since one of my assistant coaches now, Kenny Ray. I've looked up to him for many years. He was a coach of mine when I was in middle school at Lincoln. So, and now he's one of my assistants. So how cool is that?
That's really cool. That's fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
I got a coach with my head coach way back in the day before he retired too. That's a fun thing to get a coach with somebody that coached you. I always enjoy that.
So, sorry, just
Coaching
got to mention this
girls.
one more thing. Like when I went
Yep.
back to Lincoln to be the head coach, right after being at
Uh-huh.
Southeast, I took over for my high school coach. And then
Oh.
that same coach, who was an All-American at Iowa under Gable, in
Uh-huh.
like his first year, like one of the, first or second year, um, he then became my middle school coach, not my middle school coach, our middle
Uh-huh.
school coach, you know what I mean?
Yep. Yep.
For our program. So that's just such cool stuff and great mentors growing up all the way through. But you talk about straight up coaching, everything we do is a variation of what I was witness to at Southeast Polk back in those early days of
Coaching
Not
girls.
early days of
Yeah.
Jason Christensen, but early days
Yep.
of success at Southeast Polk, I guess I should say.
Yeah. And obviously their program has done quite well.
Mhm.
Definitely done quite well. When we go to coaching girls, have you changed much, maybe culture wise, or what's different about coaching girls?
I mean, coaching is coaching. What's different is the relationships, right? Like, um, I mean, there's just honestly the biggest thing for me is just building confidence. Building confidence and I guess more vulnerability with the girls in that standpoint. Like, don't get me wrong, when I was coaching guys,
Hmm.
confidence was an issue for many, but it was disguised in masculine persona, right? And
Yep.
with the girls, they're just a little more open-hearted, if you will, and honest when it comes to that stuff. And so that's actually easier and more fun because you know what you're dealing with, right? Like it's open conversations, and obviously last year not obviously, but um, we were fortunate to Ankeny partnered with a mindset coach
Oh,
in the
nice.
district, and so we worked with Cody Myers. 4, 5, 6 times throughout the year. And I know that she was in contact with our girls and helping them through things. So, that the off the mat type of stuff, like just being mentally prepared and confident and knowing like you're trailblazing, right? And it's okay to feel vulnerable and it's okay to take chances. And um, it's been pretty cool.
Yeah. These are things that we didn't have as a like me growing up. We didn't talk about feelings in our wrestling room.
We're in a different world. We're a different world.
Yeah, we are definitely a different world than that. So yeah. So the environment you're creating, what's some of the things that are going into the culture of Ankeny?
Well, just trying to build that family atmosphere. I know that sounds cliche, cliche, But we just are constantly trying to just build activities and things to do around them. For example, like this weekend, we're for our second time this year going to play the Miracle League here in Ankeny, and help out with that. We're going to do a trunk or treat for one of our elementary schools. I mean, probably similar to a lot of things what people do, but we like to think we're doing every possible opportunity that we can to build camaraderie and be there for each other, and using wrestling as a means to live life, right? Wrestling's tough, but so is being a mother, so is
Yep.
getting up in the middle of the night with your children, so is when something goes wrong at work. So just constantly preaching those type of things too. It's at the end of the day, it's just wrestling. Winning and losing is really fun in the moment, but when you get to be our age, it's the experience that you're talking about. So just taking in the moment, living day to day, trying to be competitors. Don't go out on the mat and leave something out there. Just battle, fight for points, be stingy, be selfish, things like that. But I'd like to think that our bigger picture is, as a girl leaves our program, like, as we're getting into it and we build stronger relationships as girls are here longer, like, um, that we're preparing them for life, and for jobs and for bosses and spouses and children and things like that. So that's what I'm hoping anyway.
Yeah, no, I think that's good stuff because we really are the number of girls that a lot of people think, well, we're preparing them for going to college and wrestling in college. Well, no, not really, because that number is
Right.
pretty small,
Which is
honestly.
fun. That's fun though. If they do that,
Yeah.
that's
Oh, it's
great.
great. It's awesome when they do, but that number is
Yeah.
pretty small. It's like what, three, 2.5, 3%
Yeah.
girls go to
Extremely.
wrestling college. So that other 97% we got to
Growing
prepare
though. It's
for.
growing.
Yeah, it
Growing in
will.
Iowa anyway.
Yeah, definitely in Iowa, but overall, but I think even like for guys, I think it's like 4% of the high school
Yeah.
boys go on and wrestle in
I mean,
college at any level.
those numbers are astronomical when it comes to like how many go on to this level, how many go on to like a Division 1 level, how many go
Yeah,
on to pro.
past
Like,
that, it's
yeah,
such a tiny little number. So really, we're as high school coaches, we're preparing kids for life, you
yeah,
know, and stuff. So that's cool that and that's why I think it's cool about talking to high school coaches because we all kind of have we have kind of the same goals, but we also have and different ways of getting there, which is
sure.
great, and we can all learn from each other. I really enjoy that. Um, the golden, if you could figure this out and write a book, how do you build confidence in those new athletes, and how do we build confidence in these girls? Because I've been trying to do this for a long time and I still haven't figured it out.
That's a tough question. I think, just like a classroom, right? Like just overemphasizing when they're doing well. Like look at that. Look what you just did, I'll never forget last year we had that big duel. Against Cedar Falls and Raccoon River at our
Yep.
place, and Super Duel,
Yep.
three nationally ranked teams or whatever. We were honorable mention or something. Um, and it was an amazing night of wrestling, right? And I went home and I talked to Cruz Aris, Immortal Athletics up in Cedar Falls area.
Mhm.
And he just, we were talking about the duel. He must have watched it, and he's very, gave me some advice like to our girls. He's like, listen, your message should be they belong. Like, look
Yeah.
at that. They're there. Like they're there with the two best teams in the state of Iowa. We lost both duels by less than 5 points. So, just taking advantage of those opportunities where they go out and they compete. They're a takedown aware, whatever. Like you're there. You belong to be there. So that's kind of been what we've focused on, at least for the last year anyway. But like I said, and you said, there's a lot of different ways. So I'm always open up to suggestions and advice from coaches or whatever it may be.
Yeah, see, I'm fortunate. I get to talk to you all, and I get to write little notes. Go, okay, I got okay. Now
Right?
I just talked to Nick Heeman not too long ago. Now I'm talking to you. Some of the best coaches in the state of Iowa. So it's fun for me to learn some stuff. Something I've had to redo, and I think when I got out of college and I was coaching young, and we were idiots coaching young, I felt like I had to be the toughest kid in the room, and I had to show them that I was so good, but defining success, when with the girls, that's something I had to really was a change in the way I coached was finding a different way to what's success for you and what's success for you. How do you guys define success in the Ankeny room?
I think showing progress for sure. Again, I mean, they're successful the minute they walk in the room, Troy. And you
Yeah.
know this, they're doing things that 99% of the population would not have the courage to do. And so walking into a wrestling room and competing in a physical combat sport and walking out of the mat in front of everybody with the lights, the spotlight, like it's not easy for young people to do. And it's certainly not easy for young people to do, as we talked about in today's day and age, you
Yeah.
know. And throw young ladies in there. I don't want to put them on a different level, but like let's be realistic. Like those are things that are challenging and new and new.
Yep.
Everything new is difficult, you know.
Yeah.
We're scared of
And
things we don't understand.
that's right. And they are trailblazing. You said that earlier. They really are. Even though they're not the first, boy, they're really growing the sport. All these girls are out right now have made there's huge leaps in the level of wrestling and the numbers of wrestling and where we're going. It's crazy to watch and it's so much fun.
So I
Mm.
think again, when you're talking about defining success, it's different for different people. It might be beating a certain person for one. We're talking on the mat success, right? It
Yeah.
might
Yeah.
be winning a certain match for someone. It might be getting an escape for somebody else, depending on what they're working on, what they need to, fix in their game. So it's little games within the big game, right? And then honestly, we have, you're talking about building character, right? Building human beings. There are some people that you have conversations with about, hey, you got to communicate better. You got to talk to us about this when you're injured. Like, so then a girl comes up or an athlete comes up and says, man, I hurt my elbow this, and you're like, thank you for communicating that. That helps us move forward. So that's a victory, probably a
Yeah.
more important one than whatever victory is on the mat because they're learning how to advocate for themselves and be smart in a manner that, hey, my elbow hurts. Maybe I should talk to someone about it. See the trainer. You don't have to be, scared to be vulnerable.
Well, you're kind of a scary guy, so no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, no, you got a lot of good. I love talking to you. This is a question that I've kind of been working on and developing, and it came from actually my dad. About a year or so before he passed away, he sat my brother and I down and he talked about legacy, and he talked about his legacy through me and my brother, both coaches, both high school coaches, have coached tons of kids. But it's not, wins and losses. He wasn't talking about. It was just like messages. What is something, you'll retire someday. What's that legacy? What are you hoping your kids take from Coach Roland?
I mean, again, just I've said it, like what our goal would be ultimately. Like, I hope that they look and say, yeah, wrestling was great, wrestling was important, but clearly we were trying to do bigger things than that, and if that's obviously is we're not young bucks anymore. And
Yeah,
so one thing that's great about our jobs as kids come and go, you get to have those experiences in education more than maybe somebody after you retire in another, profession. I don't know what that is. Obviously, educators, coaches, we're not like, filling up the banks.
yeah,
So we get our pay or we get the things that make it, worth doing when a kid comes back in your inbox and says, hey man, like I've had a few of these. I know we butted heads, back in the day, but I'm to the age now where I finally, and I'm talking some more old Lincoln guys, obviously we're new
yeah,
in the girls, but um man, I get it now. I see where you were coming from. Thank you for that.
yep,
Like I needed that. Like nobody in my life held me accountable or called me out for that except for you. And those are like um what I hope that I feel like God put me on this earth for is to, help people learn how to be responsible and take ownership.
yep.
So that's
And
what,
you're right. Sometimes kids don't ever hear no, or they didn't do it right. I
yeah,
had a kid last year, and I absolutely no names or anything, but um, corrected a position, and stuff. And next thing I know, they're over on the bleachers putting their other shoes on, and they walked out of practice. And I was like, "What just happened?" And then mom came later, and it was actually a great conversation. As the parent did an awesome job. But she said, I've never had a coach, I've never had anybody correct me on doing something wrong in wrestling. And I don't know, I guess I don't want to say anything in wrestling. No one had
right.
corrected her. And she'd been out for, it was freshman, had been out at least 2 years of middle school and probably a little
Yeah.
before that. And no one had ever stopped and corrected her.
What a
And I was
lesson she
like,
learned.
yep. It's like,
Now she can take
wow.
constructive criticism for the rest of her life.
Yep. Yep.
That's
Um,
huge.
we always, I give you a hard time about Ankeny. He's always cheating and stuff, but um, we all have challenges in schools. Large schools have challenges too. You're in the cities, and you just talked. You were in traffic all the way to there, and I said,
Yeah.
well, we have a couple of stop signs, and
Yeah.
I can go to work here in about I can get to work in 2 minutes, and that's
Right.
walking out my house and starting the car. I could be in at work in 2 minutes.
There's
What are
traffic here in
some?
Ankeny, and the
Yeah,
metro is
it's
notoriously bad.
yeah, it's nuts. Especially I don't like to be in the Des Moines area at 5 o'clock at all. But what are some of the challenges, in coaching in large schools?
Well, I mean, for starters, I don't teach in my district. So that's not maybe a challenge to teaching a large school. It's a challenge for me personally, you
Uh-huh.
know. Um, so that's just something I've had to navigate and we'll have to continue to navigate as administration change and blah blah blah. But that's a challenge for me. It's a challenge for my assistant coach, Michael Tarrin. We also have another coach, Michael Carlson, an assistant who's now teaching in a different district as well. And so that's the first challenge that I see for my job at Ankeny. As far as Ankeny itself goes, I mean, obviously we talked about the consolidation, so that takes more communication, different communication. Signups become challenging, busing,
Hmm.
getting and then obviously throwing a bad weather, and you got a girl coming from Bondurant, um, slightly bad weather. We're still on, that
Yep.
can be challenging. So. Um, and then like even if we were Ankeny's, right, or one Ankeny, we're still multiple schools because we're 8, 9, and 10, 12. So you had those four schools in Ankeny alone. You had Bondurant, you had North Pope. We're dealing with six schools.
Wow, I didn't realize
So
you guys were 9, 10, 11, 12. That's kind of
yeah,
crazy. That's
8,
different. I guess you
9,
guys eight, oh,
8,
8,
9,
9. Okay, so
8,
you're
9.
like in a junior high instead of a middle school type of
Yeah, yeah,
situation.
yeah,
Gotcha. 8,
100%.
9. So then 10 through 12. Yeah, that's a challenge too, because they're they're in a different school. They're not these aren't their same friends in the hallway, those
Right.
types of things. Yeah, and you were saying busing. Wow, getting to meets
You know
sometimes is
what?
nuts.
Honestly, Ankeny has been amazing. I mean, I work in another district and the busing is a very, very challenging.
Hmm.
Ankeny and the way they've supported us out here. Our administrators have been just, it's not just me problem solving, right? I mean, there's 4 or 5 of us problem solving between the ADs at the 8, 9 buildings and then the high school ADs and then the high school assistant ADs. Like every one of them is willing to step in. And we have our go-to basically person, but like for example, we're trying to find a time to wrestle Kendrick in Des Moines Public. He was trying to find one of his buildings and on a Tuesday night in basketball, and I sent an email out, and like 5 of the 6 people reply and say, hey, this is what our building has that night, and we're gonna figure it out. We're gonna be able to host. So, they've been very cooperative and very supportive of our administration out here to help problem solve them. And obviously 4 years in, the problems that were a problem 1 year ago have gotten easier.
Yep.
We've got not policies, but plans in place to how we're going to handle that each year.
Yep. And schedules start to get solidified, and you're not always finding meets. And you do a conference schedule also?
We do. Yep.
You do.
So
Okay.
those are on Tuesday nights.
Those are your Tuesday nights. Nice.
Yeah.
Um, I know you have coached other sports. Do you still coach other sports?
I'm waning out. I actually was the head cross country coach at Lincoln for the boys team last year, and just for 1 year to kind of bridge the gap between coaches, and gave that up this year. And this is actually, I told my wife, this is actually the first like season, and I think
Hmm.
3 school years that I haven't been coaching something because obviously I do the wrestling and that takes a big chunk of the summer. I was doing cross country before, and then in the spring I do middle school track at McCombs Middle School where I teach, and then I also have been doing some soccer as well after that track season's over. But my some of my greatest memories to date in coaching were high school girls softball that I coached for a long time at Bondurant Farrar with my dad, who was a long time high school softball coach. So had some pretty
Nice.
memorable experiences doing that I don't know, it'd be hard to top those when you're doing it with your dad, no matter what
Oh
happens.
yeah. That's really cool. You mentioned family, wife and kids, really important part of all of our lives. But your kids you're young yet.
A couple of them are,
So,
a couple of them are
yeah, a
not.
couple. So what's family like? What's wife and kids like?
So I have two sons,
Okay.
previous relationship. Um, Mikhail is an 18-year-old senior at Des Moines Christian. Carter is a 16-year-old junior that wrestles at Southeast Polk. And then I have a 6-year-old that is in first grade. And then I have a 4-year-old that just started preschool a couple weeks ago. My wife, Megan, we've been married for about 9 years. She's obviously, as all of our wives are the greatest thing that could have and has had ever happened to me. So, um, she keeps our family afloat and she supports this wrestling thing. Um, I don't know if I'll outlast my daughters, but one of them for sure is going to give wrestling a shot, and who knows what that'll turn into someday, you know? So, they're involved in soccer. Like I said, my son wrestles, my oldest son works a lot. So we're busy. We don't have much free time. So
Yeah.
this week alone, with my wife and I had just Tuesday night, or no, excuse me, last night, Wednesday night was our only night that we got to spend an hour or more together this week. But so what? Who cares? Work harder. Everyone else has the same situation at home. So I'm
Yeah.
preaching to the choir.
Yeah, no, wives are they're important. They do. They support us a lot. And yeah, I know when we're talking about wives, the amount of time that we're gone and going on trips and you're with USA Wrestling in the summer, I'm with AAU Wrestling, and we're all over the place. And
Honestly, Troy, and just said this when we were talking about how busy this week, with third week of school, right? Now it's
yeah.
everybody's full swing practice, and I'm actually driving to Iowa City where my son is anyway, me once a week, him twice a week for wrestling practice. But I said to my wife, I said, it slows down during the wrestling season. I'm like home every night by 7 o'clock. You know what I
Yep.
mean? It's winter, slows down. Obviously, we may spend a night overnight somewhere, but spring and summer, those are tough. It'll be a little bit better for me personally this year, kind of switching over to the girls' side of Iowa USA Wrestling. I won't be in Fargo as long, and the duels aren't as long. They're not two styles. They're in the Midwest right now, whereas the duels I've been going to have been out in Salt Lake City. So I'm excited to spend time with my family and manage that, keep it
Nice.
balanced.
Nice. Um, Getting kind of close to the end of my stuff. I got a couple interesting questions I think you'll enjoy. Make you think a little bit. Um, Is there a point in your coaching career that made a huge impact, changed maybe the way you look at doing things?
I mean, I cannot say that there's been one point, but I've said this, Troy, like if I don't, I mean, I alluded to it earlier, if anybody else has any other ideas, I think, and this again, a cliche, I hate to be cliche. I'm an educator. So in theory, I should be a lifelong learner. I should learn from situations. And so we're constantly um, trying to evaluate situations and make better choices the next time, or better, whatever, different. Um, but I can't say there's been one time specifically. And if it was, honestly, it's probably not a great situation to talk about anyway, like, um, you know how that goes.
Yep.
But I think Jolynn said it when we were on here with her a while back, like, I'm a completely different coach than I was 10 years ago,
Yep.
like complete softy comparatively. So,
Um, Coach's phrase, coaching with your dad. And then your original coach. Is there something that you took from those two coaches, that maybe you still use today? Obviously, you use all kinds of stuff, but is there that one phrase that they said all the time?
you know what? There's a million phrases I say that my dad says, so I couldn't. But one of the
Couldn't.
ones that I always remember, in softball, and I say this in wrestling, that he said a lot, and it was one of the first things I remember, like, oh man, that really makes sense. Like, you're in practice and people are going through the motions and you're looking around and, like drilling, right? Like every time you drill something the wrong way, you're getting worse at it. And it's like you come here and you go through the motions for an hour and you didn't do any, you did 5 good reps, you did 105 negative reps, bad reps. Like, don't waste your time, like practice things the right way is something that I always say, that I just remember my dad saying a lot, you know. So
I like
what
it.
was that? Who else?
I was just saying your dad, and then your head
Any
coach.
other coaches?
Yeah, your head coach, you coach with him also. It's
Yeah. Um, Jason, I don't know this necessarily Christensen, that isn't necessarily like sayings, but the whole, thought process behind the the thoughts and things that you need to do, decisions will generate probably from there. Actually, a combination of him and my dad, but two
nice.
completely different sports. So,
Yep.
how to handle or like off-season schedules and whatnot.
Two final things.
Yep.
Blank. This is a fill in the blank question. Wrestling has taught me to blank.
Fight.
Good. Simple, easy.
Yeah. I mean, I
But
can
but
elaborate,
no,
put my
you're
head
good.
down and, like
You
take
can,
the road less traveled.
yeah. And then the last thing I always do, final thoughts. What's on the mind of Dustin Roland this evening that you'd like to
I'm
share?
super excited for our season. Like you said, we got a great group coming back. James and I have a great relationship. Sometimes people think if you're competitors with someone, you should hate them. James and I work really well together, and we really put our minds together to do great things for girls wrestling. But so I love being able to compete against them. Love to see Allie, love to see whoever, you know what I mean? Those are things that like I'm thinking about right now,
Yeah.
honestly. We're right around the corner. We're like 30 some days out. So close our eyes a few nights and we're gonna be there. So that's what's on my mind. That's what I'm thinking about. And I'm super stoked for 25-26 season.
All right. Well, very good. Thank you very much tonight. I won't see you probably till I might see you at the IWCOA convention,
Mhm.
but then before
We
that,
yeah, okay.
it's Ogden probably.
Ooh, that's a long time from now.
It'll come
Well,
quicker than quicker than we
right.
think probably. But yeah,
Looking
that's the only
forward
time
to
I
it.
see the only time I see you during the year other than state. So,
Right.
all right. Have a good night.
Thanks, Troy. Appreciate you having me.
You bet.